Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Calvin Brooks. I'm an international admissions and recruitment officer at Carleton University, and today I'm here to talk to you about some of the unique benefits and opportunities associated with studying in Canada. So over the next 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to talk about some of these benefits and opportunities, and also other reasons why Canada might be a great spot for you to consider for your post-secondary education. So first of all, a little bit more information about Canada. So Canada is located within the continent of North America. We border the United States to their north, and we are the second largest country in the world by land mass. We are home to some very unique cities, urban centers, rural landscapes, beautiful provincial and national parks. We're surrounded by three oceans. There is truly an area of Canada for everyone. A few other things we like to point out is, of course, our size. Now, as previously mentioned, we're the second largest country in the world by land mass, but we actually have a fairly small population. We're just short of about 38 million people at this point. Our country is made up of 10 provinces and 3 territories. You can see the map on the screen in front of you. And what's really unique, and one thing a lot of students have difficulty understanding, is just exactly how big this country is. So for you to fly from our most eastern point over in Newfoundland over to our most western point in the province of British Columbia, it would be approximately 9.5 hours of flight time to get you from one end to the other. That's the equivalent of areas like Dubai to Tokyo, just to get across one country. Within our country, we also have 6, that's right, 6 different time zones. That is how big this country is. Sometimes when we're interacting with students and they say they want to visit a colleague in Ottawa or from Calgary, sometimes they don't realize just how far away some of these places might be from one another within our country. So it's very important that you understand the size of our country and just how big it is. But we, of course, really value our international students. We love to teach them about everything Canada has to offer. And we do hope that you decide to come and study in our great country. And of course, there's reasons for why you would want to study in Canada. Some of them are listed on the screen in front of you. Some of the ones we like to highlight, of course, is the high quality and internationally recognized institutions that we have within our country. Canada has a public education system for the most part when it comes to post-secondary. So the majority of our 96 universities are publicly funded, which means we receive government funding. And in order to get this government funding, we have to maintain certain levels of education. We have to meet this high quality bar that our governments have set for us. So no matter where you go in Canada, you're going to be receiving a high quality high quality degree. And given the statuses of our institutions, these degrees are internationally recognized around the world. So whether you want to stay in Canada afterwards or go back to your home country or try somewhere entirely new, you will be able to get around with this degree. What's also nice about a degree from a Canadian university is that it is flexible. There's a lot of flexibility when it comes to the studies here. You're not stuck with one particular major or one particular area of study. Maybe you're a student interested in engineering, for example, but you also have an interest in business. In Canada, our universities will allow you to explore both options. There's opportunities for things like double majors or minor areas of focus. Your degree is very flexible and can really be customized to what you're interested in. Another great pro for Canada is that we are an affordable country as well. Our tuition rates are very affordable when compared to our neighbors to the south. And depending on the institution you go to, you might be quite surprised at how fairly priced the tuition is. The other thing too is that the Canadian dollar isn't as strong as the US dollar right now. So the exchange rate is quite favorable for international students. We also value experiential learning, and I'll get into a little bit more detail about this later on in the presentation. But what's important to understand is that our institutions value the fact that our students want hands-on experience. They want experiences outside of the lecture hall or classroom, and we give that to them through many different means, one of them being cooperative education or co-op, which we'll get to momentarily. And speaking of hands-on experiences, a lot of students do want to work during their studies too, and of course after their studies as well. And Canada is able to offer you some unique work opportunities both during your studies and after you graduate. International students are able to work part-time or up to 20 hours per week during their studies and up to full-time or 40 hours per week during their breaks. Canada also offers a postgraduate work permit, which can be very valuable for international students as it allows them to stay in Canada and work for up to 3 years after they graduate. A few other things we want to highlight about Canada is, of course, that we are one of the safest countries in the world for international students. Our country is both socially and financially stable. We have an outstanding education and healthcare system, advanced infrastructure. We're also ethnically diverse with a large population of immigrants in many different cities all throughout our entire country. Canada was also the first country in the world to adopt multiculturalism as an official policy, and we strive to be socially inclusive, respectful of human rights, provide economic opportunities for all. And we've welcomed well over 500,000 international students in the last couple of years. So that's just something to keep in mind too. A few other things we like to highlight is that, again, in general, post-secondary education in Canada is recognized worldwide. We do have the competitive costs compared to other top-ranking destinations, and we rank third for education in the world and first for quality of life. And you can see at the bottom of your screen where that study was pulled from. So these are all very important factors that we ask you consider when thinking about where you wish to study within Canada. Our university system is quite unique in the sense that there's a variety of institutions and they really range in size. As mentioned earlier, there's about 96 universities in Canada. The majority of them are public. There's a wide range of programs offered across all the universities, and that can even be broken up depending on what region you study in within Canada. And the university sizes can range anywhere from 1,000 students to up to 90,000 students. So we do have a wide range of different sized universities as well, depending on what you're looking for from your university education. I've mentioned flexibility throughout. You also have the ability to change programs too. So if you do come here for one degree program and you wish to switch to another, you can do that. You're not stuck within the degree that you've started in. A lot of our degree programs are also interdisciplinary, so you'll be able to take a wide range of different courses and things that might interest you throughout your degree. And it's one thing for me to sit here and talk about this throughout this presentation. I'm a former university student. I'm Canadian, might be a little biased, but rest assured, 96% of international students recommend Canada as a study destination. And again, you can see at the bottom where we've pulled that stat from. Moving on, we do have what we call sort of direct entry programs and kind of secondary programs. And what this means is how you get to get these professional qualifications. So for students interested in areas like engineering, accounting, kinesiology, these are often direct entry programs, meaning you can start them from year one of your 4-year university degree. The reason we highlight the second entry programs is because we often get a lot of questions about this when we're interacting with international students. So second entry programs generally require some university studies or a full university degree in order to be admitted. So programs like medicine, law, pharmacy, physiotherapy, dentistry, veterinarian, etc. You'll see the list of them on the screen in front of you. Oftentimes when I'm traveling, I get asked about our medical programs in Canada. And what I can say to you is that you must begin your university studies with a degree, generally within science or health sciences, but there are other options too. And then you are able to write your pre-med exam or your MCAT and apply to Canadian medical schools. So you are not able to apply to a medical school directly from high school. You have to complete some university studies, then apply to a Canadian medical school. And I know this is going to raise a lot of questions, and you can ask those to myself and the other reps throughout whatever fair you might be attending, and we would be happy to assist you further. But just keep in mind that these are not direct entry programs, and also keep in mind that seats may be limited for international students as well. And the individual university reps would be happy to comment on that further. Moving along, I talked about experiential learning earlier. And like I said, Canada really values this aspect of your education. We think it's so important for our students to take what they've learned in the classroom and apply it to real world settings. And of course, we offer internships and practicums. Those are fairly standard and offered internationally amongst many different institutions and countries. But we also offer co-op or cooperative education. And this is fairly unique to Canada. We're kind of the pioneers of this, to be honest. And it's something that's really cool because it allows you as a student to take a certain number of semesters off from your studies entirely and work full time in a job related to your field. The universities will assist you in finding employment that's relevant to what you're studying. This employment will be paid. You'll be able to make connections within the workforce, and you'll gain experience, which is very, very valuable upon graduation. Co-op generally is not mandatory, it's optional. It usually exists for a lot of the programs that a university may offer, but it's important to keep in mind that not every single Canadian university offers co-op. So if this is something you want, if this is something you think you'd value, talk to your university rep and see if the university offers it and what programs they offer it for. Now, because you're taking a certain number of semesters off from your studies to work full time, this will increase the duration of your degree. So a 4-year bachelor's degree may take up to 5 years. But what's important to understand is that you'll be gaining experience, making connections, and earning money during your work terms. And you will not be paying tuition during those work terms too. You might have to pay some small co-op administrative fees that are issued by the university, usually a couple $100, but you will not be paying tuition during these work terms, co-op terms. So you will not have to budget for an additional semester or two of tuition. You're only paying tuition during your study terms. As an international student with your 3-year postgrad work permit, like I mentioned earlier, you're able to stay in Canada and work after graduation. And so often, if you do well in your co-op position, your employers might have a job waiting for you upon graduation, or at least you'll have the connections and the experience to be able to find something relevant to what you did throughout co-op. Again, this is not mandatory, but we do strongly encourage it for all of our students. And just a little bit more on employability. I've talked about the postgrad work permit. You'll hear about this quite a lot. It's something that's fairly unique to Canada and something we love to promote, and really allows you to stay here and work for a few years after graduation. And it's also a great opportunity to sort of build a valuable network and a valuable range of work experience during your time here in Canada. You do not have to stay in Canada upon graduation. You can return to your home country or try somewhere new, but we do like to promote that this is, of course, an opportunity available to you. Now, this next part of the presentation is a little bit more about application processes, admissions, and things like that. And like I mentioned, there's 96 universities within our country, and some universities do things a little bit differently. So this is going to be fairly general, and we'll more kind of cover what questions you should be asking the individual university reps about the application and admissions process. So just keep in mind that some of the things I'm going to go over might be different depending on where you're looking at, but it's important to think about these things as you start to explore options within the universities you might be interested in. But generally for the application process, you really want to pay attention to the deadlines. Most applications will open in the fall, usually October and November, and most will be due in the spring, usually March through till May in some cases. That tends to be the application window for students interested in attending for a September or fall intake. So just keep that in mind. Some universities also have direct program applications where maybe you want to be an aerospace engineer. Some universities will have you apply to aerospace engineering and you'll start day one in your first year. Other universities might have you enter into a more general year. So maybe all the engineers enter into a more general year, and then you get into your specific area of study within your second year. Some universities are different than others. Some are more direct. Some are general, so just keep that in mind as well. And then in terms of the actual application process, this also varies based on province, based on institution. Most institutions will allow you to apply directly to the institution. For anyone interested in studying in the province of Ontario, you may have to go through OUAC or the Ontario University Application Center. There's also Apply Alberta. There's the Common app that's usually used for the US. Some Canadian institutions can be found on there as well. There's a few different methods of application, so just keep that in mind too. It's very important to ask the universities you're interested in how you can go about applying for their university. Some other things that are important to understand with the application process is, of course, document submission. Generally, especially since COVID, students are able to upload or send in a lot of their documents electronically. We generally don't need documents mailed to us as much anymore, but again, we do need to make sure that you're asking these questions to the individual reps in case things are different. We also usually like to receive your transcripts and other school documents from your counselors so that we can verify that they're official and not fake or forged or anything like that. We also might require hard copies of the results. It really varies by institution. So that's why the document submission piece is another very important question you should ask the university reps. In terms of decisions, generally, the window is February to May-ish, emphasis on the ish. At the end there, it ranges depending on the institution and the program as well. And then, of course, there are additional applications to be considered once you've been admitted to university. For example, scholarships or housing, you may want to watch out for those deadlines. Also, your study permit, of course. This is something you can talk to your local Canadian embassy or consulate about. And then the CAQ, which is a unique study permit for the province of Quebec, which any Quebec rep would love to chat more about. In terms of funding your studies, there are some tips and tricks that we do like to promote to students. First of all, we do like you to establish a budget. We need you to understand exactly how much money you or your family can contribute to your international education, because this will help you narrow down choices that might be available to you. Some universities in Canada have lower tuition rates for international students and some have higher. So establishing a budget will help you figure out where you fall on that range and what universities might be available to you. You can also ask about scholarships, but just keep in mind that a full ride scholarship is almost non-existent in Canada. There are some full tuition scholarships available at some institutions, but the concept of a full ride doesn't generally exist here. There are a few exceptions in some cases, but for the most part, it's not like that. And that's just because we are all public institutions. And the other thing too, though, is that there's a lot of other additional partial scholarships available. Sometimes they're based on merit, sometimes they're entrance scholarships, sometimes there's athletic scholarships. Just apply for whatever you can and be realistic about how much money you think you might earn from a particular scholarship. There's also financial aid available in some cases. You will have to talk to university reps about that. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a part-time and full-time work opportunities during your studies and breaks, as well as co-op and other paid work opportunities too. This is a very important subject and one that you can certainly talk to the university reps in more detail about. And in terms of admission requirements, this slide is just kind of a general overview and is very general. So I'll apologize, but you do want to talk to the reps about this. So the admission requirements vary by program and vary by university too. Most entrance averages are available on our website. And when in doubt, just contact us. Generally, the admissions process is based on academic performance and required subjects or prerequisites. Your institution may request an English proficiency score from you as well, and they may need supplemental information too, such as a portfolio or an audition, depending on what university and what degree program you might be applying to. Most Canadian institutions are test optional. That being said, some Canadian institutions may request an SAT or ACT from you. We will all request your high school transcripts. So generally from grades 9 to 12, we do like to be able to track your academic performance, and you will need prerequisite courses for the degree programs you might be interested in. For example, students in engineering in Canada generally need math, chemistry, and physics to be admitted to an engineering program. Now, again, there are some exceptions in certain institutions, but those are the sort of prerequisite subjects you want to be prerequisite requirements, you want to be looking out for. Language proficiency too. Some universities have pathways into their general degree programs if you're not as fluent in English as you need to be for university studies. Others will just let you bypass this with a test such as IELTS or TOEFL or Duolingo in some cases, so just keep that in mind as well. We've covered a lot of the supplemental information at the bottom. Extracurricular activities might be used for scholarships, but generally aren't used in the admissions process. And there may be additional sort of grades plus programs, as they're referred to, where you might need to submit a portfolio or an audition or something like that. In terms of next steps, if you've replied and you've received an offer from the university that you want to go to, you would accept your offer. You would then receive what's called your visa letter in your offer of admission. You would use that to apply for the Canadian study permit. Depending on what point in the pandemic we are in a given year, you may need to also go through your arrival plan and self-isolation plan. This will likely change throughout the term and as COVID vaccination rates go up around the world, but just keep in mind that that might be a requirement when you are applying. You'll also want to secure accommodations, whether that's on-campus residence or off-campus housing. Our housing offices generally will assist you with both, and it's important to reach out to them to see what may be required for that. And then orientation. You definitely want to consider signing up for whatever sort of orientation programs your university may offer, because it's a great way to get to know the university, your program, meet people in a similar situation as you. So that's something we always encourage students to do within their first year, is get involved in that orientation program so you can find out all the important information and make some friends as well. Now, this slide is just some of the tips for students that myself and my colleagues have kind of accumulated and realized throughout our years of travel together and all of our interactions with international students. So the first thing we like to share is that Canadian universities are all good. I work for Carleton. I'd love to see you come to Carleton. I'd love for you to be a Carleton University student. But the reality is, I know if you go to another Canadian university, you're going to be going to a high quality institution. So while we'd love to see you at our individual institutions, rest assured that no matter where you go in Canada for university, they're all going to be good. And because of this, when you're thinking about where you might want to study, think about some of the other things that might set us apart. The size of the university, the location of the university. Do you want to be in a big major downtown city like something, say like Toronto? Or maybe you want to be in a smaller rural community like in Sherbrooke, Quebec with Bishops. Do you want a lot of extracurriculars? Is that something you value? Or are you strictly interested in the university for your academics? What about on-campus living accommodations? Do you want accommodations on campus? Do you want accommodations off campus? Cost as well, programs, what's offered. There's all sorts of different things to consider when thinking about Canadian institutions. And we always encourage students to think about everything else, because these are some of the factors that set apart a lot of Canadian institutions. And in the end, we want you to pick a university where you'll be happy and succeed, and the right fit might look different or will look different for every student. What your right fit may be might be different from your best friends, and that's okay. You are the one funding this education, so we want to make sure that you are getting the return you want on it. So just keep that in mind as well. So that wraps up my presentation for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for listening to everything I have to say. This presentation was packed full of information about studying in Canada. And again, I want to encourage you to reach out to the individual university reps to ask them any further questions that you might have. Our job is to answer your questions and assist you throughout the recruitment and admissions process. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. And from myself, if you wish to get in contact, you can reach out directly through international@carleton.ca. I've also put our admissions website on there as well. But again, I encourage you to check out every Canadian university that might interest you, and I look forward to connecting with you all further. Thank you so much for joining me today, and enjoy the rest of your event. Bye, everybody.